listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from May 1st, 2023. Of course, it is the second night of the WWE Draft. How did the WWE Draft play out tonight? Honestly, nothing really special, to be quite honest with you. There were some picks that I liked, some picks that I didn't like, some questionable decisions in my opinion, but overall, nothing really special came out of tonight's WWE Draft. Same thing goes to Friday night. I thought Friday's draft was kind of mixed, a lot of mixed reactions. Same thing right here. I feel like there's a little bit more negative than positive, in my opinion, regarding the draft tonight. But nonetheless, I thought, the draft overall was, I don't want to say a disappointment because, they were shaking up the rosters, but it's just very questionable decisions on WWE's end regarding the draft in some aspects of it. But the big question is, of course, after the draft, the rosters are going to be taking into effect after Backlash, which is this coming Saturday. And the only question that we are going to be asking ourselves is WWE finally going to abide by the rules of the brand split? Honestly, I do not think that they will, because it's WWE. They literally follow up with the plan on one hand, and then literally over time, they tend to undo that plan, and they just go out and just do whatever the hell they want. But nonetheless, what are my thoughts on Raw as a whole? Raw was, I don't want to say primarily boring throughout the entirety of the show, because there were some aspects of the show that I did like. The mixed tag team match with Judgement Day and the LWO I thought was fantastic. Solo Sikoa and Seth Rollins were the main event of the show. I thought the match was all right. I mean, you knew going in that nobody was going to get pinned in this match. Like, this match was obviously going to be ending in a DQ. The show abruptly ended, that is to say the least. Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar basically had the same segment that they did last week, so nothing really special there. And really nothing out of the ordinary happened. We did have some storyline progression regarding Jey Uso and the Bloodline. Very interesting stuff right there. Of course, Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins kicked off the show as well. But nonetheless, it was I don't want to say it was a pretty generic episode of Raw. There was some good, there was some bad, but not really the best Raw that we've had, to be quite honest with you. Usually in most weeks, Raw is not really the best show, especially because of the fact that, and I constantly say this, the show is 3 hours, and literally it just, those 3 hours really affect the show a lot. But before I get on with all this craziness regarding Monday Night Raw, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Plus, the WWE SmackDown review is up on the channel. The link will be in the description below. We talk about Night 1 of the WWE Draft, plus the WrestleMania Night 1 rematch between the Usos and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a title match for the Undisputed Tag Team Championships. Plus, if you guys haven't checked it out already, the AEW Dynamite review is also up on the channel as well. We talk about Roderick Strong being all elite and helping Adam Cole from the Jericho Appreciation Society. The build, the continuation of the build as we head towards Double or Nothing. Of course, we're going to be having a big tag team match this coming Wednesday on Dynamite with MJF and Sammy Guevara teaming up against Darby Allin and Jungle Boy. And if Jungle Boy and Darby Allin win, they will be added in the match at Double or Nothing, and it will officially be a four-way match and a lot more. But if you guys want to check out the AEW Dynamite review, that as well will be in the link in the description below. All right, let's get on with the Raw show. Overall, again, Raw was in a way kind of a generic show. Really, the WWE Draft portion of it didn't really help, in my opinion. But nonetheless, it was all right, if to say the least, in my opinion. Triple H, of course, kicks off Raw, and he basically states the same thing that he stated this past Friday on SmackDown, talking about how all remaining undrafted WWE superstars are subject to the possibility of transferring to the other brand. The remaining half will be drafted tonight, and as a result, since Roman Reigns is going to SmackDown, the undisputed WWE Championship will be staying on SmackDown. Meanwhile, you have the World Heavyweight Championship, who will be crowned at the Night of Champions pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia, will be exclusive to Monday Night Raw. There is one superstar who isn't eligible for the draft, and that is Brock Lesnar. Today, Brock renegotiated his free agency. And, of course, a select few of NXT wrestlers are eligible as well. And the new rosters will go into effect after this weekend's Backlash. So that's going to be a good thing, in my opinion. It's best that you have the rosters in effect after Backlash. But we get the first round of Night 2 of the WWE Draft. In the first overall pick, the number one pick overall for Night 2 of the WWE Draft is the current SmackDown Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley. Very interesting move right there. The second pick is Austin Theory, who is the United States Champion, who will be headed to SmackDown. Seth Rollins will be staying on Raw, and Charlotte Flair will be staying on SmackDown. So what are my thoughts on the first overall round of tonight's portion of the WWE Draft? I have some questions. Number one, Rhea Ripley. Now, we all knew this past Friday on SmackDown, Bianca Belair was drafted to SmackDown, and she is the current Raw Women's Champion. Now, we both know that Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair are going to be defending their respective championships. Of course, Bianca Belair is going to be defending against Io Sky at Backlash. Meanwhile, you have Rhea Ripley is going to be defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Zelina Vega at the Backlash show as well. Could this be a scenario in which Io Sky beats Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship? We have absolutely no idea. I don't think that's the case. I do end up thinking that both women will be retaining their championships. But this is the problem that I have. If WWE is going the route that I think that they're going regarding the championship swap, because they're known to do that, they did it with the tag team titles, and they also did it with the women's titles. And remember, we had that whole fiasco with Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair with the whole swapping of the championships, and there was a fight that happened backstage. Not a fight, but primarily an argument that happened backstage between both women. Are they going to be doing that? And if they do that, I think it's the wrong decision to make. Now, it makes no sense for WWE to draft the Raw Women's Champion to SmackDown. Meanwhile, the SmackDown Women's Champion to Raw. Now, granted, I believe Rhea Ripley was always on Raw anyway because she was a part of the Judgement Day. So she was a part of Raw for a while now. So it makes sense for her to stay on Raw, but she is the current SmackDown Women's Champion. That, in a way, kind of makes no sense if you really think about it. WWE really put themselves into a corner. Now they have to figure out a way to really keep those championships intact. Now, I had a theory that since WWE unveiled the World Heavyweight Championship, I believe WWE is playing. Now, I heard this rumor from social media on the internet. Don't take my word for it, but I heard that they were going to be doing something with the tag team championships because of the fact that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I believe they've been drafted to Raw tonight. So they're going to be doing something with the tag team championships. I believe they're going to be rebranding the tag team titles. Maybe they could bring back the World Tag Team Championships or the WWE Tag Team Championships. Could this be a scenario in which they're going to be doing the same with the Women's Championships? I have absolutely no idea, but that is just a theory that I have. But again, I understand Rhea Ripley staying on Raw because, of course, Judgment Day has been drafted to Raw. Bianca Belair getting drafted to SmackDown as the Raw Women's Champion makes no sense. Rhea Ripley is the current SmackDown Women's Champion. That makes no sense as well. It's just so confusing to the point where WWE really does not know what to do, and they literally put themselves into a corner. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with both women's championships, and this is the problem with the booking, man. This is the problem with the brand split, man. They should have went with Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair when they had the chance, but they didn't do it. Instead, they went the Charlotte route, which I thought was the wrong decision to make. They should have went with Rhea Ripley versus Bianca. Then that would have been for the Raw Women's Championship, and then you would have had basically, Rhea win the Raw Women's Championship, and you wouldn't run into any problems. But WWE, they love basically ending their problems and creating new ones. So that's interesting. Austin Theory to SmackDown. I think it was pretty obvious. He's the current U.S. champion, and this past Friday on the SmackDown show, you had Gunther, who was the current IC champion, along with Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci as part of Imperium. They've been drafted to the Raw brand, so it makes total sense for Austin Theory to get drafted to SmackDown. Seth Rollins remaining on Raw makes sense as well. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's not going to be on the same show as Roman Reigns, and he is, I believe, the top candidate to win the World Heavyweight title. Charlotte Flair to SmackDown. It's pretty obvious as well. She's going to be staying there. Well, yeah, those are my thoughts on the first round of the WWE Draft. After that, Triple H brings out Paul Heyman. He goes into the ring, and he cuts a promo, like always. And he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, and I serve as special counsel to our Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. The Tribal Chief has asked him to address a number of business items. Just rebel on his wisdom. Item number 1, the draft. Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and himself have been drafted, I should say, to Friday Night SmackDown, which means tonight they determine the fate of the Usos. The Usos, who did not win back the tag team titles on SmackDown from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. He will address the Usos in a private matter about that tonight. The Usos will address their problems this Saturday at Backlash when they team with the problem solver Solo Sikoa against Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and of all people, Matt Riddle. Now, these items will not only be addressed by our wise man tonight, but 1 week from this Friday on SmackDown, as long as it's not in the state of Texas, our Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, he assures us he will take care of all the business items, as one of them is that gold podium right now, that piece of gold right there on that podium. And, of course, he is talking about the brand new World Heavyweight title. Our Tribal Chief, he talks about how he's going to take care of those issues, and he asks, wouldn't that title look relevant around the waist of Roman Reigns? Followed by a slew of boos. Here we are, almost 1,000 days, talking about Undisputed. Not one title, not two, but 3. You create a championship, and Roman Reigns will dominate that title to the main event of WrestleMania. Roman can't compete for that title, though, because Roman will not be here on Monday Night Raw. You know what is worse about that? All the children that are running in the locker room are running around flapping their guns about Roman. People who should know better. The men who should be acting like men, and those men are freaking jokers. They are freaking jokes, freaking clowns, says Paul Heyman. And then what happens? Seth Rollins comes out. The crowd is singing his song, and Seth laughs right in the face of Paul Heyman. And he asks Paul Heyman, "Paulie, good to see him. Why the long face?" Today has to be like Christmas for him. Roman is drafted to SmackDown, and he is still on this show. Monday Night Rollins, baby. Which means Roman doesn't have to run from him anymore, and he doesn't have to pull strings, so he never gets his title match again. He can use that extra energy to make sure that the bloodline doesn't go poof in his face. And he loves a good spoiler, but here's a spoiler for him. At Night of Champions, he will win the World Heavyweight Championship, and the whole world will see what a real champion looks like. And Heyman, all of a sudden, is on the phone with the Tribal Chief himself, Roman Reigns. A common occurrence throughout these past couple of weeks with Paul Heyman. So he's on the phone. And Seth says it's going to be hard speaking on the phone with all these people singing his song. So the crowd is singing Seth Rollins' theme while Paul Heyman is on the phone. And Paul Heyman is literally screaming to the crowd, "I can't hear my Tribal Chief." The crowd sings his song, and Heyman finally puts down the phone. And he goes straight to Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman basically flat out says, "You're pissing off your Tribal Chief." Seth says that he will not like this. He has a question. How long will it take to get Paul on the canvas so he can stomp him down to the mat? Will it take 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, or 2 seconds. And then what happens out of nowhere? The enforcer, the street champ, Solo Sikoa, comes out. Solo, basically, it looks like he's going to be threatening Seth Rollins, but then Paul Heyman just backs him, and he's like, the tribal chief told him that all strings are being pulled as of right now. By the time we get back from commercial, it will be official tonight. It will be Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa on Raw. What are my thoughts on this segment? This is a pretty good little segment overall. Now, with Paul Heyman stating that Roman Reigns, will look good with the World Heavyweight Championship, I don't think he's going to go after the World Heavyweight title. I mean, I think it's very ludicrous for, Roman Reigns to go after those championships because he doesn't really need them. But again, Seth Rollins is the perfect candidate to win that world title and basically kind of carry Raw on his back, just like Jon Moxley did AEW this past summer. But nonetheless, this wasn't a bad promo. It was pretty entertaining, very interesting with the things that Paul Heyman stated, stating that Roman Reigns will be addressing all of the issues and all the items next Friday on SmackDown, 1 week from this Friday. Very interesting stuff. What the hell is going to be happening? We have absolutely no idea, but I'm definitely curious as well. All right, moving on. In our first match of the evening, we got Raquel Rodriguez. I feel like I'm Pat McAfee stating that. I don't know why, man. I remember when Raquel Rodriguez was first called up to the main roster, you had Pat McAfee literally say that exact same thing on commentary. But we had Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan taking on Bayley and Dakota Kai. I believe this was a contenders match, so if the heels got the win, then they were granted a title shot, I believe. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But nonetheless, I didn't really care a lot about this match. You guys already know my deal with Damage Control. I'm not really as in tune with Damage Control. I feel like Damage Control, their direction is basically, they got no direction whatsoever. They're directionless, and there's just, I feel like Damage Control definitely has ran its course, in my opinion. I feel like Damage Control is like a failed experiment. But let's go through the match. We got a roll-up by Liv, and then by Dakota, and then we get a near fall. We get a roll through by Liv Morgan, and then Liv goes for the shotgun dropkick, but then Bayley makes the tag. Then, after that, Bayley misses the elbow drop. Raquel makes the tag. She tries to slam her, but then Bayley escapes. Bayley then goes for the slap, but then Raquel spears through Raquel into the corner. We get a double team attempt by both of the baby faces, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Dakota then hits the pump kick onto the outside. And once we're back from commercial break, after that, Dakota goes for a running kick. After that, Liv Morgan fights back. Liv tries to tag in Dakota, but then Dakota holds on, but then Dakota hits a right on Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan then finally makes the tag, but then Raquel goes for repeated clotheslines. Raquel then picks her up and hits the fall-away slam, and then she hits another one on Dakota Kai after that. She then goes for the corkscrew elbow on her opponent, and then Liv tags in. She has Liv up on her shoulders, but then Bayley drags Raquel to the outside. Dakota goes for a kick, and then Dakota looks like she went for a Code Red. It looked like it was like a modified version of a Code Red. And then we get a cover into near fall when Raquel interferes, but then we get the double knees by Liv. She then manages to hit the Oblivion, but then we get the sunset flip roll-up by Bayley out of nowhere, and we get a cover. And Damage Control get the win. So it looks like they will be facing them for the Tag Team Championships at a future date. I believe that is the case. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the case. But nonetheless, I didn't really care a lot about this match. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody cares about Damage Control. And look, that is to say, look, I'm a fan of Dakota Kai, I'm a fan of Bayley, and I'm a fan of Io Shirai. But Damage Control ain't doing it for me. I'm sorry. Booker T and Queen Sharmell come out to announce the picks for the second round of Night 2 of the WWE Draft. So the list and the picks for round 2 go as follows. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be drafted to Raw. The Usos will be drafted to SmackDown, so they're going to be remaining on there. Judgment Day are going to be remaining on Raw, and the LWO are going to be remaining on SmackDown. So basically the majority of these picks are just, I don't want to say nothing picks, but I mean, basically everybody is staying where they are. I believe Kevin Owens was originally on the Raw roster. Sami Zayn wasn't, though. He was on the SmackDown roster because he was doing his own thing with Roman Reigns. But nonetheless, I mean, everybody's just going to be remaining where they are. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I believe, are now going to be exclusively to Raw. That's going to be very interesting considering the fact that they're in the Undisputed Tag Team Champions. We do not know what they're going to be doing with the tag team belts, but I heard, there was a lot of rumblings and rumors that I heard. Don't take my word for it. This is all what I just heard. A lot of people were talking about this, that they're probably going to be rebranding the tag team championships. I do not know if that's the case. That's just pure speculation. Don't take my word for it. That's all I heard on social media, but I have no idea what the hell they're going to be doing. The Usos remaining on SmackDown, I think it makes total sense considering the fact that the Bloodline is over there, and I don't think they're going to be splitting the Bloodline anytime soon, but of course they're going to be continuing to tell the story when it comes to Jey Uso, because we all know Jey Uso is basically going to get whacked. Then we got the Judgment Day staying on Raw. Pretty obvious. Now, they did draft Rhea Ripley separate, but I believe she is the current SmackDown Women's Champion, so in a way that kind of does make sense. But Judgment Day, all three members, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, and Dominic, they get drafted to Raw, or remain on Raw, I should say. The LWO will be remaining on SmackDown. Makes total sense as well, but what's very interesting is that we now have the entirety of the Bloodline and the entirety of the LWO now a part of SmackDown. You know, I talked about gang warfare last week on the podcast. I mean, I don't know, man. You got a feud right there. You got LWO versus the Bloodline. Sign me the fuck up. That's going to be a badass feud in my opinion. But nonetheless, nothing really changed with this round of the draft overall, but these picks were obviously, I don't want to say obviously expected, but I mean, nothing really special. Everybody is basically remaining where they are. We got Ricochet and Braun Strowman from SmackDown, who later get drafted to Raw in a future round, taking on Alpha Academy. Pretty short match overall. Ricochet and Chad Gable start. Very good in-ring chemistry between Ricochet and Chad Gable. Fantastic stuff, man. Chad Gable, man. A lot of people sleep on Chad Gable, but like Chad Gable is a fucking stud in the ring. This guy's insane. Very technical guy. We get a switch by Ricochet. We get a chop by Gable. Ricochet goes for the head scissors. After that, he goes for the drop kick, and then he follows up with the back elbow. Gable then goes for the German, but then Ricochet ends up landing on his feet. After he lands on his feet, we get a chop by Ricochet, but what happens is Chad Gable ends up hitting the rolling German suplex. What happens after that is Braun Strowman makes the tag, but then Otis tags in. Otis then basically tags in and basically goes face-to-face with Braun Strowman. Otis goes for a splash. Strowman fires back, but then we get a crossbody by Strowman. Yes, Strowman goes for a crossbody. Strowman picks up Otis, and then he hits a slam on Otis. After that, Ricochet makes the tag. He goes up on the shoulders of Braun Strowman. Ricochet goes for the somersault, and we get a cover, and Ricochet and Braun Strowman get the win in a relatively short match, but it wasn't that bad. You know, say what you want about Ricochet and Braun Strowman. Yes, they are a makeshift tag team, but I'm not going to lie, man. I'm digging the chemistry between both men. We then get round 3 of the WWE Draft, but hold your feathers. Originally, the people who were supposed to make these draft picks were Shawn Michaels and Adam Pearce. As soon as they were about to make their picks for the WWE Draft, what happens? Brock Lesnar immediately comes out. He comes in the ring, and he cuts a promo and says, Fort Worth, Texas, how does it feel to be looking at a real cowboy in the state? And then what happens is Adam Pearce brings out security. And then Brock says, with all due respect, it's going to take a hell of a lot more men than that. And then all of a sudden, Adam Pearce came in prepared, and he brings in more security guards out in the to the ringside area. And what happens is Cody Rhodes' music plays, but Cody Rhodes attacks Brock Lesnar from behind. Brock ends up retreating, and literally all the security guards just gang up on Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes gets pulled back by security. And then what happens? Brock Lesnar leaves. So that is basically the final thing that we are going to be seeing before Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar clash, quote unquote, at the Backlash pay-per-view. Overall thoughts on this segment. Nothing really special to be going on. I'm still not really... I mean, I thought last week's segment was fine. But if you really think about it, this week's segment is kind of a repeat of last week. It was kind of a repeat of last week in which, you know, security comes in, Cody Rhodes wants to attack Brock Lesnar, but then Brock Lesnar just doesn't. He just retreats and shit. He just doesn't give a fuck. I mean, Okay, great. But do I think the match is going to be great at the Backlash show? Yeah, I think it is. It's just, I'm not, if you do the same thing that you did the previous week, you kind of lost me there, but whatever. We then get round 3 of the WWE Draft. So we got Shawn Michaels. Originally, it was going to be Shawn Michaels and Adam Pearce. But what happened was basically Adam Pearce was so focused on everything else going on with Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes that basically Shawn Michaels is just basically like, fuck it, I'm going to do it on my own. For the picks, we got Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan are drafted to Raw. They are the current women's tag team champions. I assume they're going to be flipping back and forth considering they are the women's tag team champions, and that is the rule. Asuka will be drafted to SmackDown. Pretty good pick overall. We got the New Day getting drafted to Raw, and we get the Brawling Brutes staying on SmackDown. Overall thoughts on this list. Raquel and Liv Morgan going to Raw. Nothing really special there. Asuka going to SmackDown is very interesting because she has been on Raw, but she is in the same brand now with Io Sky. Sign me the fuck up right there. The New Day, of course, that's Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Now, we do not know how long Big E is going to be continuing to be out, but I believe he's still on the road to recovery, and I believe Big E is still on the Raw roster because I believe the night he got injured, it was on a SmackDown show, but he was still on the Raw roster. So, honestly, if they're going to plan on reuniting the New Day, that's not a bad idea. The Brawling Brutes remaining on SmackDown, I feel like they do belong on SmackDown. I'm a big fan of the Brawling Brutes. My only disappointment is the fact that now we got Imperium and the Brawling Brutes opposite with one another. Primarily Gunther on Raw and Sheamus on SmackDown. I still genuinely believe that Sheamus should be the one to dethrone Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. But I don't know if that's possible now with both factions, or I should say both wrestlers, that being Imperium, or I should say Gunther and Sheamus being on opposite shows. It looks like that's going to be very much less likely. But nonetheless, that was round 3 of night 2 of the WWE Draft. In our next match of the evening, we got Matt Riddle versus Jimmy Uso. On the outside, Kevin Owens and Jey Uso face off. Kevin Owens basically pulls an Eddie Guerrero, and what happens is Sammy from behind throws a chair to Jey Uso. Then all of a sudden the referee sees this, and the referee bans Jey Uso from the ring. Once we're back from commercial break, Jimmy is in control over Matt Riddle. We get a cover by Jimmy and a near fall. Riddle then tries to fight back against Jimmy Uso, but then Riddle goes for a kick on Jimmy, and then Matt Riddle goes for the exploder suplex. And then he hits the bro tom, but then Jimmy gets the knees up. Jimmy then gets up, but then we get a back elbow by Jimmy Uso, but then Riddle goes to the top once again. He gets dropped to the outside, but then Jimmy goes for a super kick on Matt Riddle. Then he follows up with the enziguri, and then he goes for the cover, and we get a near fall. Jimmy then goes for the super kick, and he does that over again, and we get a near fall, so he goes for the cover. And after that, Riddle goes to the bottom rope, or I should say he's on the bottom rope, but then Jimmy takes the pad off the top turnbuckle pad, or the top turnbuckle. He takes the pad off the top turnbuckle. Jesus Christ. Kevin Owens then takes out Jimmy Uso without the referee looking by basically bumping his head onto the exposed turnbuckle. After that, Riddle goes for the knee, followed by the floating bro. And we get a cover, and Matt Riddle gets the win over Jimmy Uso. This is the second pin in a row in which Jimmy Uso takes the pin. Of course, if you guys do not remember, in the tag team title match of this past Friday on SmackDown, Jimmy was the one that took the pin instead of Jay, but it looks like Jay as a whole is still going to be in the doghouse. Very interesting stuff. Jay gets the loss once again. What the hell is going to be happening at Backlash? We are just going to have to wait and see. Solo Sikoa is backstage with Paul Heyman. Jimmy Uso, or I should say Jey Uso, comes in, and he asks Paul Heyman why he wasn't at ringside tonight. Heyman said that they will keep Solo concentrated for his match against Seth Rollins. Eric Bischoff and RVD come out, and they announced the next round, that being the 4th round of the WWE Draft. So in the next round, we got Trish Stratus remaining on Raw, Karrion Kross remaining on SmackDown, Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey going to Raw, and LA Knight remaining on SmackDown. Okay, I have a major problem with this round, and that being Karrion Kross and LA Knight. Both of those men are going to be staying in the same brand that they are in. That is a major problem, because if you really want high hopes for these guys like LA Knight especially, and Karrion Kross, I feel like more LA Knight now than Karrion Kross. I feel like, even though I've been enjoying Karrion Kross, I'm a big fan of his run wasn't really the best, and they haven't really been doing a lot with Karrion Kross these past couple of months. LA Knight has just so much fucking potential. Like, you can clearly see it. The fact that they didn't draft LA Knight to Raw is baffling to me, because he could easily go after the world title. But no, he's going to be staying on SmackDown. And honestly, if you think about it, what is there left to do for LA Knight on SmackDown? Nothing really. Karrion Kross as well. What the fuck is he going to be doing on SmackDown? He should be getting drafted to Raw, and he should be in the tournament for the World Heavyweight Championship. But what's interesting is that, and I didn't know this until like yesterday when I was listening to this in a podcast. I believe it was Solomonster's podcast that he mentioned this. I believe when it comes to the tournament for the World Heavyweight Championship, that title is going to be consisting out of both Raw and SmackDown talent. If the world title is going to be exclusive to Raw, why are you going to be including talent from both Raw and SmackDown in this tournament? Makes absolutely no sense. But again, could they be still involved in this tournament? We have absolutely no idea. But I think the decisions of having Karrion Kross and LA Knight getting drafted to SmackDown and not getting drafted to Raw, I think that is a major issue right there, especially for LA Knight, because LA Knight deserves much better. I think he kind of ran its course on SmackDown, and I feel like there's a whole lot more opportunity. I know that WWE loves the word opportunity, but this is just very much true, man. There's just a whole lot more potential for LA Knight on Raw, and I feel like Raw definitely needs a guy like LA Knight. We get a Miz TV segment with Shinsuke Nakamura. He talks about how the Raw roster is stacked, and the biggest acquisition, of course, is The Miz. But tonight, his guest is someone that will be on Raw, and of course, that guest is Shinsuke Nakamura. He welcomes him to Monday Night Raw and talks about how he has an opportunity to be the World Heavyweight Champion. And Shinsuke basically says hi, and he doesn't want to answer Miz's question. And Miz says when Triple H is looking for a workhorse champion, he is talking about himself, of course. He is the epitome of a workhorse, and Shinsuke Nakamura would be a great number 2. They should have a partnership. Miz K Nakamura, says The Miz. And he needs someone to watch his back. Who is better than The Miz? And Shinsuke says thank you. And he has more experience than him, but on Raw, he is the guy of Shinsuke Tama, I think that's what he says. And it basically means small balls. And Miz tries to attack him, but then Shinsuke gains the advantage, and Shinsuke ends up hitting the Kinshasa. Nobody gives a shit. I am a big fan of Shinsuke Nakamura, but nobody gives a shit about this Miz TV segment. On to the next thing. We got Omos versus a random jobber. Omos squashes him. Nobody gives a shit. Road Dogg and Molly Holly announced the next round of the WWE Draft. Of course, this is the 5th round of the WWE Draft. Jesus Christ. Once again, I'm getting tongue-tied. Jesus Christ. It's been a common occurrence. For round 5 of the WWE Draft, we got Braun Strowman and Ricochet getting drafted to Raw from SmackDown. Shotzi staying on the SmackDown brand. Bronson Reed remaining on Raw. And Pretty Deadly from NXT going to SmackDown. Heard a lot of great things about Pretty Deadly from NXT. Now, I don't watch NXT, but I heard a lot of great things about them. So, honestly, this ain't a bad pick whatsoever. WWE could use more tag teams for their tag team division, especially in the men's side. So it's great to see that Pretty Deadly has been called up to the main roster. But nonetheless, overall, this round, nothing really special. I mean, Braun Strowman and Ricochet getting drafted to Raw. Great overall. Shotzi staying on SmackDown. Whatever. Bronson Reed remaining on Raw. Whatever. Pretty Deadly remaining on SmackDown. That was definitely the shock factor of this whole round. After that, we got a Judgement Day segment. All members of Judgment Day are in the ring, that being Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley. Of course, Judgment Day is going to be in action later on this show after this segment, but also They are going to be in action at the Backlash pay-per-view. Of course, Judgment Day is going to be wrestling the LWO. Meanwhile, you got Rhea Ripley of the Judgment Day defending her SmackDown Women's title against Zelina Vega. So, Damian Priest does his whole thing. All rise to the Judgment Day. They will be staying on Monday Night Raw. And all rise for the first pick overall of tonight's WWE Draft, the SmackDown Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley then cuts a promo, talks about how was there any doubt who the first pick was going to be. They thought that they could get rid of them. The Judgment Day runs Monday Night Raw. And this Saturday at Backlash, Zelina Vega will regret everything that she has done for her on SmackDown. She will show exactly why she is the most dominant champion in WWE. Balor says that she will flick Zelina, and he has bad news for Bad Bunny. And he says that Damian Priest will tear him apart. And then Damian Priest gets the microphone, and he says, Bad Bunny, he wants to listen to his words very carefully. He proceeds to speak in Spanish. And at first he just speaks profusely, just random shit. But then later on, he speaks slowlier in Spanish, and I actually translated this because I also speak Spanish. Yo hablo español también. He talks about how he knows that he's a mega superstar in music. This is what he basically stated in Spanish. He knows he's a mega superstar in music, and in this ring, this is his world, not his. He takes advantage of his fans, and in Puerto Rico, he will beat him hard, and he will hurt him. He will not only do it in front of his fans, but also in front of his family. And in Puerto Rico, te voy a darte. And he's going to receive his punishment. After that, Dominic Mysterio gets the microphone, and this shit was insane. A slew of boos for Dominic Mysterio, man. I constantly come on this show, primarily on the Raw review, and I state this every fucking week because it's true. Dominic Mysterio is a goddamn heat magnet, man. Now, you got a lot of people saying, oh my God, he is so much better than MJF. Fuck you. MJF is on a different level. But regarding heat, Jesus Christ, Dominic, holy fucking shit. This guy's amazing when it comes to heat. Now, granted, his promo skills are not really the best. He's gotten better, but if you compare him to MJF when it comes to promo skills, forget about it. MJF's clearly better. When it comes to heat, both men get heat, but I don't understand why people are comparing MJF to Dominic Mysterio. I feel like there's like, why do people make comparisons for the sake of making comparisons? This is the dumbest shit ever. But whatever. Dominic Mysterio is a heat magnet, and that's great to see. So Dominic gets the microphone. He talks about how he can't wait until mommy. He can't even speak. And he tries to repeat himself, but the boos just keep interrupting him. And he says he can't wait until mommy and Priest dominate at Backlash. We get a bunch of "you suck" chants by the crowd. Until mommy and Priest dominate at Backlash, and until the Judgment Day is going to dominate Santos Escobar, Zelina Vega, and his deadbeat dad in this 6-man tag team match. He kind of botched that a little bit right there. Since the LWO got drafted to SmackDown, looks like it's the last night he gets to embarrass his dad along with his loser friends in the LWO, so they can run away and hide on Friday nights. And then the LWO comes out. And then Rey Mysterio says, no one is running or hiding anywhere. They were elected by SmackDown to compete on Fridays. That is how the draft works. No sea tonto, says Rey Mysterio. Don't be dumb. So, but he is glad to say that they are on the same brand. And if he thought getting his ass whooped by the belt was bad, next time he will bust out la chancla. And yo, for all you Hispanic people, y'all know how the chancla works. I had that shit happen to me multiple times. And he can't wait to see Zelina Vega leave Puerto Rico with Rhea's championship around her waist. And he's looking forward to watch Bad Bunny basically romperte Priest a la cara. Basically break his face. That's what he stated. And everybody by the Judgment Day who is stupid enough to get in Bad Bunny's way. Before all that, Judgment Day will get smacked right now by the LWO. So we then get this mixed tag team match with Rey, Santos Escobar, and Zelina taking on Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and Rhea Ripley. This was probably like the best thing on the show in my opinion. I really loved this fucking match. I've been really, in my opinion, I've been enjoying a lot the feud between the LWO and Judgment Day. And honestly, this match definitely was fucking awesome. Rey and Dominic start, but then Rhea immediately makes the tag. Rhea gets in the face of Rey Mysterio, She shoves the face of Rey Mysterio, and then Rey takes Zelina and hits the Hurricane Rana on Rhea Ripley. After that, we get a big kick by Rhea on Zelina. Rhea then tries to hit the Riptide, but then Rhea picks up Zelina, but then Zelina escapes. Priest and Santos Escobar tag in, but then Santos takes him out. We then get a running knee into the corner by Santos Escobar. Then we get a bunch of rights and chops by Priest, but then we get a kick by Priest. Santos then runs into a right elbow. After that, Priest then falls into a knee by Santos, but then we get a backbreaker by Santos Escobar on Dominic. Rey makes the tag, but then we get a senton on Priest onto the outside. Once we're back from break, Priest is in control over Santos Escobar, but then he runs into a dropkick. After that, Dominic and Rey tag in, both fight it out. Rey goes for the head scissors, and then he goes for repeated rights onto the second rope. Dominic escapes and hits a shot to the back of Rey Mysterio. After that, Rey goes for a kick, but then we get a springboard crossbody by Rey. And then we get a cover and a near fall. Rhea then goes for the right hand, but then Rhea picks up Rey. But then Zelina hits the 619 on Rhea. She then takes Rhea to the outside, but then we get a drop kick by Dominic. Priest makes the tag, but then Priest runs into the corner post when Rey ducks. After that, we get a drop kick onto the back of Priest, taking him to the middle rope. Rey then sets up the 619, but then Balor distracts the official. Santos then goes for the suicide dive on Dominic, but then we get a drop kick by Rhea Ripley on Santos Escobar. Then Zelina goes for the Meteor on Rhea onto the outside. Priest then picks up Rey, but then Rey escapes and hits the 619, but then Balor actually ends up getting hit with the 619 when he tries to interfere. But then Priest catches Rey, hits the South of Heaven chokeslam, and we get a cover, and the Judgment Day gets the win as we head towards Backlash this coming Saturday. Overall thoughts on this match. This was fantastic stuff overall. I really enjoyed this for what it was. Again, I love the chemistry with everybody involved, and I think they're going to absolutely kill it this coming weekend, so great stuff nonetheless. We got Kathy Kelly interviewing Cody Rhodes, and she asks if Brock Lesnar is in his head after what happened tonight. And Cody Rhodes basically flat out says, yes, Brock Lesnar is in my head. He's been in his head after he attacked him at WrestleMania. Now, he neglected his free agent status, but not at Backlash. Here's what we found out tonight. Doomsday bled. Brock is human. He doesn't need to win. It's him that has to win, because if he doesn't, the whole idea of finishing the story ceases to exist. And then he moves to the back of the line, and he refuses to go to the back of the line. And then after that, we get a Bianca Belair backstage interview and asks about what her reaction was getting drafted to SmackDown. She talks about how it doesn't matter what brand she is in, even though she reps blue, she has nothing but love for Monday Night Raw. She's talking about getting drafted from a sports team to another sports team. Like, bro, both shows are the fucking same. Damage Control comes in, and they should be interviewing them, says Bayley. But then Io Sky says she's going to give her a real reason when she beats her for the Raw Women's Championship. And then Bianca says that she's always been impressed with Io Sky. I was about to say Shirai. And she knew that she was going to be a unique talent, but she was held back by pairing herself with Bayley and Dakota. And then all of a sudden, Io speaks Japanese, and then Bianca says she doesn't need a translation because they know each other. So yeah, nothing really special. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this match plays out, considering, of course, Bianca is headed to SmackDown, and she is the current Raw Women's Champion. And, of course, Rhea Ripley is going to be remaining on Raw, and she is the SmackDown Women's Champion. Everything is fucking convoluted here. WWE put themselves in this fucking issue. Teddy Long, the former SmackDown GM, and JBL, the longest reigning champion, quote-unquote, in SmackDown history. We can take that back. It's now Roman Reigns, let's be honest with ourselves. Comes out to announce the next draft picks in the final round of the WWE Draft. We got Alpha Academy staying on Raw. Rick Boogs going to SmackDown. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, tag team from NXT. I believe they're going to be in a tag team title match this coming Tuesday on NXT. I don't watch NXT, so bear with me here. They're drafted to Raw. And Cameron Grimes is drafted to SmackDown from NXT. Overall, nothing really special here, of course, except for the final two. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, they are a legit women's tag team. Absolutely needed on the Raw side or on the SmackDown side. It doesn't really matter because, again, they are a legit women's tag team, and we need women's tag teams on the main roster. Cameron Grimes, I've always been a fan of Cameron Grimes. I loved his feud with LA Knight a couple years ago on NXT. The whole thing with Ted DiBiase was just funny as fuck. I'm a big fan of Cameron Grimes. I don't want to say it was long overdue, but Cameron Grimes definitely deserves to get called up to the main roster. So, yeah, that was the final pick, or I should say the final round of the WWE Draft. After that, we got Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa in the main event of the show. The crowd is singing Seth Rollins' song. Of course, Solo Sikoa makes his entrance. I don't know if I stated this earlier. I think I did. But Solo Sikoa's entrance is fucking badass. Holy shit, it was awesome. Both lock up. Solo misses the Simone Spike attempt, but then Solo is getting distracted by the crowd singing his song. Seth slides to the outside. Solo goes to the outside, but then at the same time, Seth goes back into the ring. Solo comes in, and as soon as Solo comes in, Seth Rollins tries to hit the stomp, but then Solo retreats back to the outside. We then get a kick by Solo, and then we get a headbutt by Solo in the ring. We then get repeated rights by Solo on Rollins in the corner. Then we get a couple of chops and rights by Seth Rollins. Solo gets taken to the outside, and then we get a kick by Seth, but then Seth hits the suicide dive, but then Solo comes back into the ring, and then Solo hits the spinning heel kick on Rollins. Once we're back from commercial break, Solo then picks up Rollins, and then Rollins escapes. Rollins then hits the Enziguri, but then Solo runs into the post when Rollins ducks. After that, Rollins goes for a chop on Solo Sikoa, and then he hits a chop on Rollins, and then we get a couple of chops and shots by Rollins after that. Rollins then continues to go after Solo Sikoa. After that, he hits a right elbow. I should say Rollins hits a right elbow, but then Solo tries to hit the spinning Solo. Seth Rollins tries to fight back, but then he hits the clothesline. Solo then is on the outside, but then Seth goes for the suicide dive. Seth comes back, but then he hits a suicide dive, taking Solo to the announce table. And then Seth again tries to go for the suicide dive, taking out Solo Sikoa. Then Seth takes out Solo in the ring, and then Seth goes for a springboard knee attempt, but then Solo catches him and hits the Samoan drop. After that, we get a cover by Solo and a near fall. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman, who is on the outside of the ring, is making a phone call to Roman Reigns. Then after that, Rollins goes for the roll-up. Rollins goes for the super kick, and then we get a rolling elbow countered by Solo with the spinning Solo. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Seth goes for the right hand, and he calls Solo Sikoa Roman's little bitch. And then he hits the spinning Solo, and Solo goes for repeated rights on Seth Rollins, but then the referee tries to make him stop. Meanwhile, on the outside, Solo then takes Rollins to the top onto the announce table. He manages to pick up Seth Rollins, but then Seth Rollins ends up escaping, and then he pushes Solo onto the top of the post. Seth goes for the super kick, and then we get a rolling elbow by Seth, but then Jimmy and Jay come in and attack Seth Rollins, causing a disqualification, which was obviously expected because there's no fucking chance that Seth Rollins is going to beat Solo Sikoa, considering the fact that Solo Sikoa right now is undefeated. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn come out. Then after that, a brawl breaks loose, and the show abruptly ends because they were out of time. It just literally ended out of nowhere. Overall, pretty generic. I don't want to say a pretty generic match because it was actually a pretty good match between Seth Rollins and Solo Sikoa, but Seth Rollins and Solo Sikoa, the match ended in a DQ. I definitely expected that to happen, considering the fact that there's no fucking way Seth was going to lose, and there was no fucking way that Solo Sikoa was going to lose. So having the match end in a DQ, if you really think about it, even though I don't like DQ finishes, it kind of in a way made sense. But then after that, you had your typical brawl break loose after that, so nothing really special. But that was Solo Sikoa versus Seth Rollins, and that was your main event for this week's Raw. But overall, that was my Raw review from May 1st, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show. Of course, the second night of the WWE Draft, we had more rounds than, of course, on SmackDown, considering the fact that Raw is a 3-hour show. But there were some picks, just like on SmackDown. There were some picks that made sense, some other picks that were very questionable and that did not make sense, some NXT call-ups. But nonetheless, again, a lot of mixed reactions from the draft. Could I say the draft was a little bit disappointing? Yeah, it really all depends on how WWE is going to be treating the brand split after Backlash. Because if they go full strict with the brand split, then you can deem this draft a success. If maybe, let's say, in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, they start breaking the rules of the draft and they have guys from Raw go to SmackDown and SmackDown guys go to Raw, you can deem this draft as a failure because we all know WWE never, and I always stated this about them because this is a common occurrence with them, they never abide with their plans in the long term. For example, with the brand split back in 2016, they went full-fledged with it until like 2018 with the brand exclusive pay-per-views. They had brand exclusive pay-per-views from 2016 to 2018 until they ditched them because of ticket sales. Like, you can't be joking about that, man. If you had booked a better show, you wouldn't be dealing with this problem because how come NXT had their own brand exclusive pay-per-views and they would always fucking sell out shows? You know what I'm saying? But shit like that, WWE never abides by, their plans or rules at all. So I don't really trust WWE to really take this brand split seriously, but I may be wrong. But let's be honest. If they don't treat the brand split as important, what the fuck was the point of the WWE draft to begin with? But yeah, that was my Raw review from May 1st, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays from the WrestleHavoc Podcast, signing out. See you guys later.